stories about every hero. How they became great.
Now, it's your turn.
Fear not, citizens. Hope has arrived because somehow, some way, we got more My Hero Academia. This is the Amateur Otaku podcast show where we talk about everything in the world of Boku no Hero Academia. I'm your host today, Christmas present Mike. Joining me, of course, is our number one hero, the Mad Doc himself, Isaac. How you doing, buddy?
It's going good. I'm just exhausted, that's all. And,
I'm exhausted too.
And again, Dr. Pepper, if you want to sponsor us.
Hit us with a sponsor, Dr. Pepper. We would love to have you. It's literally what fuels this show. So, for those of you joining us, we are here talking about My Hero Academia chapter 431. Yeah, the book just kept on going thanks to Horikoshi Sensei. So, for those of you in Japan, you got the release of My Hero Academia volume 42, and in it was a special bonus chapter called More, because it's just more. I respect it.
And there is also arguably another reason why it's called that, but let's go on with that later.
We'll get into that later. If you have not read the chapter, again, it's only in Japan. Luckily, we got friends in high places who can translate things for us. So we're going to talk about it. It's not going to be here in the States until this time next year in 2025. By then, you will probably see Bones already animated in My Hero Academia's final season, season 8. So again, this is spoilers for MHA 431. Otherwise, guys, we're going to keep on rolling. This is your final warning. If you want to save this a year from now, go ahead, bookmark it, see our initial reactions. Otherwise, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Isaac, were you expecting more My Hero Academia?
Both yes and no. Because I wouldn't be in the surprise. This is such a cash cow that I could see them. You can only read it if you. It's sort of like how should I put it? Like how physical media was back in the day for movies. Sort of like, if you get this now, you can get some extra bonus content for XYZ. Granted, it's for pre-orders to this day, but you get the idea. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if they had ended on the note we covered back in the day. This sounded wrong, but you get the idea.
It was a few months ago. That's why this is so interesting to me. So yeah, I think for me, I expected them to return in My Hero Academia. I expect Horikoshi to give us more. But I don't know if I expected it to be what we got. And I think that's where this conversation is going to be fascinating, because I'm trying to get some information here. Sorry, we're doing this live. But I do find it fascinating that this is just a day in the life of these characters, which is something Horikoshi was very open about, of like, hey, this is not the ending of the series. The ending was actually chapter 429, and these last two chapters are just a peek behind the curtain, which I think is an interesting approach to it. It's nice, and it gives us closure, I think is what I'm feeling. This copy of My Hero Academia, volume 42, is already past 1 million sales in circulation. Yeah, people want to buy it. First off, I love the cover of this book. I'm going to pull it up on screen. It's a clear homage. Share. Here we go. Look at that. Beautiful. For those of you watching on YouTube, it's right above my camera, actually. It's clearly volume 1. And if you didn't notice, every volume in this background is in order for My Hero Academia. But yeah, so this chapter starts off with Ochaku Uraraka, which I think is very, very cool because when you think about 430, Uraraka doesn't have a speaking line in that final chapter, which always felt weird. That's why it didn't feel complete, you know? Like, she is the female lead of this story, I'd argue. So her not getting any dialogue in that final chapter after she has like that breakdown with Deku, I think was a bad turn. So I'm glad Horikoshi kind of came back, but we're firmly in the time skip era. Do you think we're gonna stay here if we get more movies, if we get more stuff? Do you think we're gonna stay in adult era, or we're gonna be like Naruto where we bounce back and forth a little bit?
I think we could go to the. We probably go to the adult era. I don't see why not.
Yeah, I just like I know that Naruto often like, especially with like the filler stuff, likes to go back in time, and it's like I don't know if we need that. Naruto also has to deal with the Boruto timeline. I know they don't want to live in that era all the time either, especially if you're telling a Naruto story. So I get it, but yeah, that's one thing I thought was interesting. Picking up here. But yeah, so we get the hero rankings. We get to see the day in the life of these characters, and I find it so interesting seeing how Horikoshi approaches Deku, right, as our protagonist. Deku having that duality of I want to be a teacher, I also want to be a hero, which I felt like was lost on people initially, right? Where it like Deku being a teacher was never a bad thing. And I thought it was so strange how the audience kind of read it as like, oh my gosh, he failed and he became a school teacher instead of being a hero. And I'm like, that's what Eraserhead did. That's what All Might did. Like Deku losing One for All and becoming a teacher at UA is exactly All Might's entire career, you know? So like I'm glad that Horikoshi kind of put his foot down and said, no, Deku would have done this regardless because this is what his calling is. This is what he's good at. He always wanted to help people and he always was good at analyzing quirks. So this is a great situation for him. So I thought that was really interesting. What do you think about Deku as a character in this book? Because I know some people are saying he's kind of acting out of character in 431, but I feel like we just haven't seen 26-year-old Deku. And this feels like what 26-year-old Deku would feel like to me.
Here's the thing that people are missing. When people are thinking about world's greatest hero, yada yada yada, and this is semi-off script, but you will get the idea. It's Superman, and Superman has a daily job, but he's also a part-time hero. That kind of stuff. But and for some Deku fans, people probably thought that he could join an agency a la Justice League, but also being the teacher that is. But the thing people don't realize is that when it comes to being a teacher, he has kids that is what's the word? He has kids under them that he is trying to help, trying to teach, trying to learn. But he can't be a full-time hired on an agency if he wants to help them grow, learn, yada yada yada. And so that's why I feel like people probably, yes, this is out of character for Deku when it comes to him realizing that he wants to be a hero from another perspective. While the people have to remember, he is also he's still a part-time hero thanks to that suit. Then we also comes across with a whole shitstorm that is, well, the Bakugo situation, which is people are playing.
We'll get to Bakugo in a second. We've got to get through page 1 and 2 with Uraraka.
Yeah,
we're gonna do this like we did in the old days. We're just gonna go page by page through this chapter.
Fair. But people are missing certain key elements to Deku. It's sort of like Did you know that Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to be a manga artist before he started working at Nintendo? For
No,
example.
that's interesting. Wow.
But he ended up working at Nintendo, and he got his became creative, but on another field instead. Here,
Yeah.
Deku ends up growing, finding his all while growing up, and it's common.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your dream was when you were a kid, but I don't know if so. And I'm not gonna ask on air, but you maybe didn't think about being a writer when you were a kid. I know that I wanted to be working with video game development, and here I'm working trying to be a podcaster / trying to get fix Let's Play or journalist kind of deal, and that's
life changes.
way
Yeah,
up.
for sure.
Life
I mean, like
changes.
Like every kid, and this is what I've always said about My Hero Academia. As a sports fan, My Hero Academia is very interesting. I know it's a weird comparison, but pro heroes are athletes in this universe, right? Like everybody growing up, everybody wanted to be LeBron James, Tom Brady. You know, like you wanted to be a pop star. You want to be Taylor Swift or Beyonce, right? And a very few people can do that. Very few people can become a hero, or very few people can become the greatest quarterback or basketball player in the world, right? Being Lionel Messi, for our international fans, being one of the best soccer players in the world is very hard to attain. And My Hero Academia was always upfront about that, where All Might episode 1, page 1 is just like, yeah, I don't think you can, kid. It's hard. You don't have the physical ability to do it. I wanted to be a quarterback. I'm not tall enough to be an NFL quarterback or an NBA basketball player. You know, to answer your question, like, yeah, you want the fame, you want the money. That's what My Hero is saying, but it's also like not everybody can attain it, or those dreams change. That's what this entire chapter is very much about, right? When we get to Shoto later in the chapter, it's very much echoing that idea. But yeah, we start with Uraraka, and she's doing her work. She's having visions of Himiko Toga, which I think is interesting. I also think that the depiction of Himiko is fascinating because she's the same height as Ochako. Toga looks a little older. So like I think this is quote unquote present day Himiko, basically saying that we are in the afterlife. It's not just flashbacks of Toga, you know, which I think is fascinating. That we also have these doves and these birds signaling that Toga is in a good place and not the bad place, which I think is interesting on Horikoshi's part. But yeah, Ochako's having dreams and she's doing her quirk counseling, so we get a better look on what her job is. It's very surface level. We don't really get an idea of like how quirk therapy and all that stuff is working for her, but she's doing it, and she's got the number one hero on her side, Lemillion, the comedian hero, rocking the dumbest hairdo I've ever seen. But you know what? It makes the kids laugh.
It made me think of Elvis for some reasons, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it very much is. I love getting the big three back together and seeing what their ranks are. Like Muriel being number 1 is amazing. Nesri being number 7 is cool. Bizarre Diet Hero, Sun Eater being Fat Gum's sidekick. He just can't leave the nest, I think is a little funny. Like you'd think he'd be Lemillion's sidekick, but he's just gonna stay at Sun Eater's place because that's where he's been the entire time. But what I find interesting too is that one, Uraraka has a smartphone for once. One of the running gags throughout the show is that Uraraka, every time she pulls out her phone, it's a flip phone because she's poor. She's not poor anymore, which I think is cool. She's also the 24th ranked hero. But one thing I find interesting is that all of these heroes are making appearances because the change from 429 is evident, right? Everything that happened in that war, they're making sure they do their best for where it will never happen again, which is why Deku is the world's greatest hero. He actually created great change. This is the world Shigaraki and Toga technically wanted, but they didn't know how to achieve it without violence, right? And I'd argue they wouldn't have achieved it without violence. The status quo would have stayed the same. So in the end, the League of Villains got what they actually want it, right? Where they can live freely and they can be who they want to be, and they have the support system that they need, you know?
Yeah. He's
Much B.
alive!
Raffy has entered the
He's
chat.
alive!
Welcome, buddy. If you can hear us, just pull yourself back in. So, yeah, at the start of the chapter, I think it's really interesting seeing the big three one last time. Again, it's just giving us that sense of closure of like, this is what happened to them. Lemillion got his quirk back. He became the #1 hero. This is the future Sir Knight I saw. It's beautiful. I love Uraraka putting smiles on these kids' faces and helping them out. Seeing her relationship with Sue is still great. What are your thoughts on Toga as a vision, as a specter of Uraraka's life? It's interesting.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
My life
is...
Sorry.
Hi. We all know that you're an asshole, but we love you.
Dang. Isaac, what were you about to say?
I didn't know I deserved that, but I'll take it.
Yeah, it's just fine. But correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Uraraka do some transfusion for Otaku to have her survive the war?
So Toga stabbed Uraraka during Mad Love. Go check out that episode. And she was bleeding out, and to save Uraraka, she had to give her a blood transfusion, and she died giving away all of her blood to Uraraka so she can survive. So that's why in this chapter, Uraraka's like, is she a vestige, like all for one? Which I think is interesting.
Yeah, which is what I'm... which why I am suspecting that she is a wedge's sort of slash her impression. She did she were kind of a big deal for Uraraka, kind of made a with a whole, because we all know that she wanted to save her, kind of deal, and seeing her saving her and Toga saving her instead, you get the idea. So it's probably a combination of both.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, Brandon. I want your read on Toga's involvement with Otaku at the start of the chat. You didn't miss that much. We are still at the beginning of the book, essentially. What do you think the deal is with Himiko Toga and Otaku seeing visions of her?
Hi, this is Brandon Alvarado, the Scarlet fan. I haven't been here in like 5 years. Happy to be here. I just read the chapter, by the way. The link that you sent me was not working. It was not working at all. So I had to find my
I told you it didn't work on mobile. Did you pull it up on your web browser?
I was doing it I was using my browser on my laptop.
That's weird. Okay.
It is so weird, but it's fine. I found it. I read it. I know what you're talking about. I didn't see any random stuff. So, so going back to, I don't find this surprising at all. It really goes back to quirk lore, because one of the things that Horikoshi made it very clear to us as readers is that part of the person's soul resides in the quirk.
Right.
So we see it with one of the most glaring versions of it beyond the standard one for all, right? Is how Star and Stripes quirk retaliated against Shigaraki, right? So that was one of the ways where we see Star and Stripes' soul living beyond within the quirk itself. So if you think about it, everything relating to Toga's quirk was blood. So the fact that a blood transfusion would have transferred part of Toga's soul into Otaku is not that crazy of an idea. And I like the fact that the way that Toga lived on partially inside of Uraraka's blood, soul, or whatever we're going to call it, is by being her friend. Because as we go towards the end of the chapter, that's pretty much, it's like she became part of that collective conscience for Uraraka, for the betterment of Uraraka. Because even though on one end, yes, Uraraka always wanted to help Toga come back from the spin that she was in after what happened with Twice. By the end of all, they became they were able to reveal how much they really cared, love, and appreciated for each other. Just as we see Uraraka doing everything she's doing with kids with difficulties as a means of connecting with everything and fulfilling her promise to Toga, or what she was not able to do for Himiko. I think it's very charming, and I think it's very fitting. And I love how it really does connect to actual lore that we've been shown by Horikoshi. It's not a curveball. It actually is right there where it should be, and I really liked it.
Speaking of things that aren't curveballs, though, we have Katsuki Bakugo being the number 4 hero off the jump and then plummeting in this hero ranking.
Oh, we expected that. We expect that 100%.
Like it, I love that. We're kind of to get you up to speed, Brandon. We're kind of going page by page. We can skip around now that you were here. We're kind of biding time a little bit, but we were talking about. Go ahead, Isaac. What were you saying?
And I have some comments regarding Bakugo, but
come on, now or never. No, now or never. Go ahead, hit us with the Bakugo slander one last time.
Here's the thing that people need to realize, be it you being a Bakudeco fan or just Bakugo fan in general. In the last chapter as a whole, Bakugo ended up, we see him downright telling someone, yelling someone, even, what's the exact word for word that he's saying, according to the manga? When, let us see here. I should have posted, grabbed that one a bit earlier, but let's see here.
Well, Isaac finds the passage of scripture. There you go.
Says, and he says, and I just want to have word for word correct, so I know what I'm talking about. Eraserhead, go on and show him a video about said, hey, see you, this Midori, your old pal is dropped by for you, not just down the billboard chart again. And then we see Bakugo, who said you could get up in my face. I ain't your entertainment. You wanna die, pal? And I'm just, you expect this person that has no social cues whatsoever, that is not exactly friendly towards people, would rise and shine and be someone that people look up to, like All Might, that is, how should I put it? Batman has more social skills when he's Batman than what Bakugo has. We all know how he is.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's disagreeing.
And that's why I'm just so annoyed that people are complaining about he deserved to be the number 1 hero, at least top 5, and I'm just,
he was top 5. He was 4, and then he fell down.
Yeah.
That's why it's like yeah.
And
I think what you're trying.
And also, we have to realize the thing that people are getting so mad about Bakugo getting declined by Deku and all that jazz.
We haven't gotten there yet, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. But okay, I'm going back. Okay.
Brandon, words.
I don't know what's going on. So what I am going to say is this. Isaac, I think that Bakugo is just who he is. He's not. I think us. Okay, let me try and find the words here. Okay, I got it. So, I think with what Horikoshi has done, with what true heroism is meant to be, right? What like literally what it means to be a hero. Because when you think about it, a hero being nice, it's more related to the idea of a perfect hero in society and not the idea of what a hero actually is. Because when you think about it, no matter how much of a kind of an asshole Bakugo can be, when push comes to shove, he shows with his actions that he is a hero. He will save the most amount of people. He will take the bad guy down. He will commit actual justice, and he will not become a villain in the process. Sometimes you think he is kind of a villain, but he never really goes that route, even with his actions, which is what the whole point of his interaction with Shigaraki in season, I think it's season 2, when he was kidnapped. Yeah,
3.
that whole interaction was to prove that even though he is just built, I don't know, there's an asshole gene in his body that just it's part of who he is. He is still someone that is genuinely good and always wants to be good. That's just who he is, though. And I think it goes back to that. Like Horikoshi also is also actually accentuating that fact by the fact that he's grown to be someone that can have heartfelt conversations with the people that he needs to. Like, out of everybody in the crowd of Class 1A, he's still the one that's looking at Midoriya straight in the eye and going, hey, man, you can't live your life doing it this way only. Yeah. And then, of course, after that, what do we get assumed into? The fact that Deku has an All Might keychain. Because even if is who he is trying to be the best that he can be. But he's still Bakugo.
Isn't that All Might keychain Bakugo's? Or did I miss that?
No, that's Bakugo's.
Yeah,
that's the card. That's the card.
Yeah. You said Deku. That's why Isaac's asking.
No, because Deku's looking at it.
Yeah.
The zoom in is Deku looking at the keychain. Because that's
it's finally signed, by the way.
Yes. That's the one that Bakugo always said he wanted to get signed when he almost died. You're muted.
Thank you. I love this entire car ride with the OG USJ.
What is with the seat, though? What is with that back seat? It makes no sense.
Listen, man, My Hero Academia was full of visual gags at the beginning, so I'm glad Horikoshi was like, I'm going to make one more random-ass gag for Deku.
Does he drive so fast that he has some G-force problem or something?
Yeah. It's implied that Bakugo is speeding here, but, you know.
Yes, he is.
I just love the conversation between Kirishima, Bakugo, and Izuku about how, and we talked about this earlier, but Brandon, you can chime in if you want, about how Deku is happy with where he is. Like, I think it's funny how a lot of the backlash to the original ending was Deku becoming a teacher. That's not what his life was supposed to be. And it's like, but this is what Deku at 26 wants to do. And I respect that.
Yeah.
He's also still very clueless, as he can't even understand the hint that Bakugo is like, hey, I kind of want you to join me and push me again. And it's like, well,
yeah,
it's all right.
Yeah. But it's also, but I like the fact that I think what I like the most about this chapter is that you and I were talking on the phone earlier today, Mike, and how this epilogue really closes the story very nicely. And what the reason why on which I like how this ends and how it closes everything is because this is them not in school for the first time, and Deku is thinking about something other than being a hero for the first time. And that, to me, it's a great way to close that. Like, that era of his life is ended. He can expand and grow in other areas of his life. Like, he told this girl that he was his hero, that she was his hero, right? This girl, some way, shape, or form, said that he loves him. You know, like those kind of the fact that those things are possible for them now because they weren't before.
Yeah, it goes back to
it's a good way of
Hawks'
closing
arc.
things.
Yeah, it goes back to Hawks' entire arc of he wants to make a world where heroes don't have too much time on their hands, right? And that's where the official ending, according to Horikoshi, 429, it ends with that, with Hawks' loop being we're not gonna have too much to do anymore. We're gonna have time to live our lives freely for once. And so you see these characters learning or like coming to grips of what they want to do and what they want to be. And I find it interesting that Deku, we mentioned this earlier, but like Deku becoming a teacher is his calling. Uraraka becoming a court counselor is her calling, but also they need life outside of work. And I love that Bakugo is like, hey, dude, you keep going all the time. Stop for once. Think about what you want to do with your life, right?
I mean, Shoto got to figure it out.
Right, but that's the other thing where like I love that Shoto's just like, I'm gonna go make bowls. I love it. It's like that's dope. I mean, it's random but good for you, buddy.
I'm gonna make bowls and chopsticks. I'm gonna do this, bro.
Yeah, and like, but that's what I love about this entire chapter, where it's like, yeah, it's time for them to figure out what they want to do. And I love that Deku, like you were saying earlier, can finally turn that part of his brain off of I want to be like All Might, and it's like, well, you achieved that. You're now inspiring others. Who are you? What do you want to do with Zuko Midoriya? And that's why I think this ending is really satisfying in that way of like, they got what they wanted. They achieved their dream. Now go live your life, which is what any coming of age story is about, really, right?
And if you think about it, none of the heroes from All Might's era or before had a life.
Or if they did, it was Endeavor.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like the idea that and it also kind of shows how big of a victory. Even now that I think about it, it kind of accentuates how powerful of a victory the victory against All for One was.
Yeah,
because it brought forth a huge turning point for hero society and society in general.
I also want to just highlight Deku's entire role in this universe, because I think a lot of people, us included, kind of misinterpreted some of the things in the original final chapter 430. Like, Deku's analyzing data from this suit, but like in this book, he's saying he's getting invites to schools and doing lectures and seminars. Like, he's not just teaching at UA, which I think is interesting. Yes. So like this dude is like worldwide, going across the globe, probably teaching
giving
heroes,
TED Talks.
Giving TED Talks, right? Doing like Deku's doing podcasts. You know how long the podcast must be when he starts muttering like he usually does.
No, and not only that, think about this. He is also a consultant for hero companies. Because when you think about the question that Kirishima was asking, it means that a lot of companies might be coming to him, hey, because who knows how to mash abilities better than Deku? Yeah.
Which in turn is funny because it also closes the loop from the inspiration of this entire series of making, hero support items for Jack Midoriya. Yep. Which I think is crazy. Isaac, you haven't said a word in a while. Do you have any thoughts?
Are you still looking for the page? I'm kind of lost.
No, I said what I found that page already.
I'm joshing you.
Yeah, like
before.
Always. But the thing I missed was gonna talk is, didn't Bakugo and Deku say that they wanted to start an agency together when they were kids?
I mean, what do you mean when they were kids? When they were 5 or when they were
when they were younger? I can't recall when. Because if that's the case, I can't. you could argue that Bakugo is someone compared
Yeah,
to
he's
the other
alluring
kids
to that. If anything, he's
that
alluring
didn't
to
really
that.
move on, kind of deal, and that's why he did such a big deal about that agency.
Yeah,
And that's
so
probably why people got pissed that Deku said no to joining that agency. I'd argue, but
so here's the thing about Bakugo, and this is also something that I love about how this chapter approaches it, right? Bakugo, when the war ended and they were in the hospital, right? He breaks down when he sees Deku's losing One for All because he's like, I thought we would do this and push each other forever, right? And it's like that's one of the most heartbreaking and like tender moments from Kachan in the entire series, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like Horikoshi and Deku also realize that Bakugo, like you said, Isaac, he hasn't moved on from that. And Bakugo, for all intents and purposes, looking at the cast grown up, has changed the least since we last saw him. He's still yelling. He's still brash, right? He's still die. And I think Deku's like, we got to move on, man. We don't have to be rivals anymore. And I think that's Horikoshi and Deku are like, look, dude, that's a dream we had in high school, but I'm a teacher. I want to stay a teacher. You need to find a kid that you can push. Like Deku's open to getting him a sidekick. But I do think the book is insinuating that Bakugo hasn't moved on, and Deku, in his own way, is also like, yeah, no, man. Our relationship is not going to be that ever again. Because the second Deku goes to being Bakugo's sidekick, toxic relationship vibes can probably resurface, and you don't want to do that. Because let's be real.
Also, I think, but I also think that in a way, kind of another way of looking at that same conversation is the idea that Bakugo is open to a sidekick that might want to challenge him. Because if you think about it, the only reason he said no is because none of them wanted to surpass him. All of them wanted to be just his sidekick. And he doesn't want someone that will just be his sidekick. And he knows that Deku will never be his sidekick. And that's kind of what he's alluding to, which I think that's why I don't see that it's limited to him wanting specifically just that interaction of Deku and Bakugo. He wants that, but it's not just that. It's like he wants someone that will push him like Deku would.
So if
he's ever going to have a sidekick, it has to be someone like that.
Yeah, this is all stemming from the reason I phrased it the way I did is before you logged on, people took issue with Deku declining that because they think it's out of character for Deku, and so that's why I'm approaching it as
it's not.
No. Right,
I know. I didn't know that was
right, but like that's why Isaac phrased the question that way, and that's why I answered it that way. Of like, I think Horikoshi and Deku are approaching it from XYZ, and that's why it's in character for Isaac. Everything you said is right, but I also want you to give you the added context of people think.
The background of that take.
Yeah, like
why do people not
know how to read?
Damn it.
I don't know, but these seats are weird. We're gonna take a intermission.
By the way, I do have to ask a question. Why does Lemillion have the freaking JoJo's Bizarre Adventure haircut?
Because it's funny. His name is the comedian hero. It's funny.
Apparently, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. That's what this chapter said. It said the number one hero, the comedian hero Lemillion. I'm just like, oh, okay.
I know. I saw
that. We're gonna take a second from the chapter. We're gonna talk about the Japan Billboard charts because we're having a celebration because our boy Shoto ranked up the air conditioning hero, by the way.
Yes.
We're gonna talk about this top 10 for a second because I just think they're interesting. Lemillion.
I do find it hilarious that they call him the air conditioning hero.
I love it.
It's horrible. It's so bad.
It's so bad. But also his hero name is still Shoto. So like,
Yes. Right. Yes. Shoto the bowl maker.
Number 1 is Lemillion. Number 2 is Shoto. Number 3 is Mount Lady. Number 4 is Kamui Woods. Number 5 is Best Genius. Number 6
Yo,
is Mirko.
Kamui Woods, bro. Kamui Woods. Yeah. By the way, that shot of Mirko was done on purpose to trigger everyone that would look at her.
Listen, man.
Does she have? Are those Gatling guns that she's carrying in her arms?
Well, remember, she is a quadruple amputee now. She lost all
I'm
her
aware.
legs. So now everything is a weapon. They're guns now, bro. I love that.
That being said, if those thighs killed before, buddy.
Listen, Horikoshi's a man of taste. I appreciate all of it. He's like, if I'm going out, we're going out with the biggest badass drawing of Mirko I can draw, man. Like, okay.
Oh, by the way, and that one shot of Kamui Woods is fire too.
It is. The art in this chapter is the best my hero has
Yes.
ever looked, and I think it's because Horikoshi had all the time in the world to draw it.
Yes.
He didn't have to do it in a week. I respect it. But yeah, Mirko's 7. I mean, that's 6, so she dropped a little bit, but she's still up there, which I appreciate. Nejire Hado is 7. Wash somehow is still in the top 10.
How? What does he do? It's a bubble.
I
dude.
don't know.
Come on.
I don't know. The washing machine's funny, I guess. Shoji cracking the top 10 is cool at 9. And Monoma being 10, chef's kiss. Fat Gum 11, Kirishima's 12, Ida is 13, Bakugo's 15.
Oh, did you
Tokoyami's
catch?
17.
Did you catch that Fat Gum is way fatter than we're used to seeing him? Probably because he sees less action.
Right. He's getting out of
He
shape.
like folds.
Listen, man, when something happens, though, do you know how much fat he has stored for the biggest punch of his life?
Yes.
That's how his power works, remember?
Yes.
Oh, man, he's going out in a blaze of glory.
He's rolling
No.
out in a blaze of glory.
Got him. But yeah, we're all together. We're having a reunion because Shoto cracked the top 3. He's now the number 2 hero in all of Japan, which, well done. I'm surprised it took him this long to get there. This is the first time it's happened. But good for Shoto.
Yep.
Looking at this, though, I appreciate just the reunion. We see all of them, their adult designs. Shoto, if you put a mustache on him, he just looks like Endeavor, which I think is so funny.
Yep.
I also love the subtle like hints that Kaminari and Jiro are a thing officially. We kind of felt like they were going to be, but Horikoshi's finally saying yeah. Yes and no.
Well, they didn't confirm it. They denied it one last time.
One last time.
What?
Mineta, oh, by the way, is ranked number 108 on the Hero Billboard charts.
And Jiro
He
goes,
deserved
hey,
to
by
be
the way, I think
low.
that's a good rank for you.
I mean, we
the
all
fact
make
that
fun of
Shinzo. The fact that Shinzo is not even in the rank and Mineta is.
Yeah.
I said that in the spoiler thread on the Discord, but you can't tell me that Shinzo isn't Eraserhead's secret love child at this point.
I mean,
They have
He
very similar
looks like-
powers.
I mean, did you see how he looked there? He looks like a young Eraserhead.
Yeah, he even has the bags under his eyes because he's exhausted from being up all night. I love it. I also love that Ashido's hero name is now Ridley Hero Pinky, because if you remember, her original name was Alien Queen, and Midnight told her no, but now she's Ridley, like Ridley Scott, the director of Alien. It's like, okay, the Alien reference still made its way through Pinky's name, which is cool. We also have a few sidekicks here. I just think it's interesting how some of Class A are sidekicks to other members of Class A, which is fascinating dynamic.
The fact that Invisible Girl wins solo too, that's awesome. And Aoyama is her sidekick.
Yeah,
which
that's
makes
great.
perfect sense. Literally,
Aoyama
Aoyama's a walking. Aoyama is a walking support item.
Yeah,
I still think it's a missed opportunity that it didn't give her sort of like a suit that she could just turn on and off, so we could see her.
I mean, she might have it in.
Isaac, you're just looking for an excuse.
What?
You good back there, bro? But
Isaac, you're just looking for an excuse.
one thing I love about this chapter, what's the excuse? Yeah, the excuse for what? Pause.
to see Invisible Girl.
Fuck off.
This- Bro, I'm
Also,
just, like,
I mean, if we're gonna go down that road, page 1 of this chapter, why is Uraraka turned around like that? Like, I know she's 26 now, but Horikoshi, relax, bro. Relax.
just saying, bro. Just saying.
She is thick as hell. It's like, dude, calm down.
I mean, I mean, if everybody was wondering what he was doing, it's 100% answered when you see Mirko. Like, it's just
yeah. So Shoto's giving his speech and he's talking. I find it really creative that Horikoshi has Shoto like reminiscing the trauma of his life story.
Yeah.
But it's in the manga panels. Like it's on the pages of an actual comic book. And I'm like, that's cool. That's really clever. That's some Logan like setup right there.
yes, 100%.
But yeah, so Shoto's like, yeah, I'm gonna make bowls and chopsticks because I want something else to do with my life, and I realize I really love eating, which is a through line of the entire show. Shoto's always eating, and his only hobby has ever been eating. So it's like, yeah, that makes sense. The last thing he asks Toya is just like, "What's your favorite dish?"
Yes, and I love how it connects to Toya. Like the idea that Toya symbolizes. I think the cool thing about Shoto also is that his entire arc kind of shows Toya presents the fruit of the old era and Shoto is the fruit of the new era. Like,
yeah,
it's like they are used to symbolize the ideology of both eras. You know what I mean? Because it's not just endeavors, the idea of heroes trying to be number one, beat the billboards, and like this fame kind of hunger kind of stuff that ended up eating Toya alive.
yeah,
And the fact that Shoto no longer has to chase that dream. Like his whole life is not just about chasing that dream. Now he realizes, wait a minute, I like other things. There's other things to me than to being the air conditioner hero.
And again, those other things came about because he has the time to focus on himself, which I think is the message of this chapter. This chapter is called More, again, because we're learning more about these characters and their futures. Like Bakugo literally says, you've got plenty of free time, huh? And Shoto's like, yeah, now I have free time to spare in my heart as well, which I think is like sweet. I also love how Bakugo sarcastically says, huh, you've been reading Parasite, which is like, oh, yeah, I guess. But yeah, I think that kind of leads back into the biggest moment in this chapter, right? As Deku is sitting around his classmates, taking all this in of like Shoto's doing other things besides hero work. What do I want to do with the rest of my life? Blah, blah, blah. And then he has thoughts of Tomura, Shigaraki, do your best, right? And Deku's inner monologue is like, what haven't I discovered about myself yet? And he glances at Uraraka. And Horikoshi just decided to draw the most beautiful picture of Uraraka he's ever put to paper. Where it's like, okay, all right, we're doing that this chapter. Brandon, did you know that this is where it was going to go?
I mean, no, but you can definitely see the foreshadowing because Toga's involved.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say Toga, everything she did was love related.
Yeah.
Well, love, like the idea and the emotion and the idea and the emotions of love really drove her to do everything she did. So the idea, so she's kind of like, I don't know, a weird Aphrodite. And I like the idea that she's kind of there to tell Uraraka, you've been neglecting this side of you.
Yeah.
And Toga's pretty much the one telling him, don't neglect it. Like, you have time for this. Do it. You know?
When I think of Uraraka as a character, one thing that always stood out to me is season 4 It's when they are getting their license exams, right? And one thing that she thinks to herself during that arc is, to be the hero I want to be, I'm going to have to put my feelings for Deku aside. And that's the moment she stops obsessing with Izuku Midoriya for the remainder of the series. Like, she mentions that she's had a crush on him, but she never pursues it because she needs to focus on herself and her hero work. And I always thought that was interesting, especially for, again, the presumed love interest of the story, for her to make that decision. And I think what made that fight with Toga so compelling is you remember that moment and have how Uraraka can't be her authentic self to achieve her goal. And that's why she tells Toga, I wish I could be like you and live my life freely. And we're coming back to that of like, hey, Uraraka, you can finally live your life freely and be who you want to be and pursue who you want to pursue, which is a nice closure to that setup. And I'm like, yeah, that it brings Toga Uraraka's arc to a nice conclusion, I think. The Spectre Toga is a little strange, but, you know, it's fine.
And there's also, but it also kind of, that whole scene also kind of illustrates the idea of hero of that era is someone that consistently neglects who they are and what they want. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, now it's a time where it doesn't have to be that way. They've earned the right to not have to be that way. And you're muted again for some reason.
It's fine. I was just going to share a thing here. I was just going to say, so as we move on, Shoto's dinner gets cut short. Somebody stole a car. Can you imagine you stole a car and you have this jumping at you? Like, I'm sorry. I don't think this fits the crime, man. Like, the greatest heroes of all time are coming to get you because you stole a vehicle. Like, that is terrifying. That is terrifying.
This guy who just left his TED Talk.
I also, Horikoshi being the tease that he is, Shoto stops the vehicle, of course, with a block of ice because that's what Shoto has always done. And we never see Deku do a dang thing in that suit. So even when we get more, he still doesn't show off the suit. It's just like, oh, it builds on him like the Extremis armor in Infinity War. That's it. That's all we get.
And then we see him without it.
Movies,
I am going to say, he looks cool with that very long cape, though.
Right? Finally.
He looks super cool. Yeah.
I love how it's still cut like Gran Torino's going around here like that. So it's also Ida's armor like goes into a suitcase too, which I think is cool.
Uraraka's as well.
Yep. I wonder if all of that is Hatsume. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she designed Deku's. But yeah, so like they quickly take care of that job, and then Tokoyami is just like, hey, we're still gonna have to fight villains eventually, occasionally. And I think that's also proper sequel setup where Horikoshi has said that he wants Bones to keep making movies, like Dragon Ball keeps getting movies. And so just having that hint of crime still happens means that crime can still happen, and they can make a random movie if they want to. Of course, Class A splits up. Bakugo lets Deku leave. Bakugo and his squad are still idiots. You see Kirishima and Ashido just dancing in the background, and I love how this ends with Uraraka and Deku both thinking about how they didn't get a chance to talk to each other more, and Deku finally runs back to Uraraka, and I think that's fascinating because this entire setup
because Uraraka runs towards Deku. Well, actually, Deku runs back to Uraraka at the end, but the conversation went differently.
Yeah, it closes the loop, but it's also reminiscent of the intro because this is the same street that Deku's walking in the day when he's all alone and depressed and 14 years old, and now he's achieved his dreams and he's going to go get his girl. I think that's so interesting. Also, this is imagine being a spectator in this random ass encounter. Deku the Rizzler. Yes. It only took him 10 years. But I imagine because this is a crowded street. It's a loop that's a crowded street. Imagine that Michael Jordan runs to the love of his life and professes his love to her just in broad daylight. Everybody's like, what the hell is going on? That's essentially what's happening here. I think that's so funny.
Yep. Oh, and that we pretend that nobody recognizes them.
Right. Like,
Not one
Deku's
person.
on a billboard. If you look at one of these, Deku's on a billboard over Uraraka. Like, Deku's on a freaking billboard. And everybody, you can tell that they're all looking at them. They're all just staring like, what the hell is happening right now?
I do appreciate how banged up both. I find it interesting that how banged up Deku and Midoriya are, which are the only two that are really banged up, apart from Jiro, because you can't see. You know she's missing one of her earlobes.
One more time, because you said Deku and Midoriya. They're the same person.
Oh,
who's the other person?
Yes, I did.
Of?
It's Bakugo and Kachan
Gotcha.
and Midoriya. It makes me think of Naruto and Sasuke, how they ended, like with their bodies completely destroyed.
Yeah, Bakugo. Well, one, he has a new heart. And two,
Yes.
yeah, he was sweating so much and making explosions so big, he just messed up his arms. That's also why I think he fell down in the ranking, and also why I think a sequel will be interesting, because nobody is as powerful as they were when they left the original series.
True.
So like everybody's been significantly nerfed except for Shoto.
Yep. Air conditioned hero.
All things considered, Baku was beyond
Yes.
lucky. The award he got was like the fact that he said, "I gotta go because Edshot is back in town." I'm just like, okay, I don't know how Edshot survived that, but cool.
Well,
Yeah,
remember he
that-
started like a little thing. So I'm
I
assuming he
remember.
just kept
I
doing
still don't get it. I remember
him
though.
being
I don't think-
resurrected is just so stupid. Nothing against him, but it just.
Yeah, I agree.
Whenever you finish your sentence as nothing against Bakugo, I don't think I believe there's nothing against.
I was not
Bakugo.
gonna say nothing against Bakugo.
So with Edshot, it's weird because when he says, "I will become that boy's heart," it's like, oh, so he's gonna become Bakugo's like beating heart. But like, no, he just minted it, I guess, and now he's still alive in some capacity. It's weird. It feels strange because if Bakugo doesn't die, Edshot should have died. But if neither of them dies, that really takes all the stakes out of that fight. But whatever. We're 8 years down the road. We're gonna let that go. So yeah, these two haven't talked in a while. I love the ambiguity of they want to talk to each other more. And that's where Horikoshi ends it. How do you interpret that, Isaac?
That they are confessing to each other. Especially considering how they are building up that scene.
It's a lot of hand holding.
I mean,
Quite
especially when you're considering that, well, the previous chapter, they literally had a change, just make a few adjustments, and the whole "You're my hero" is a prime example of how you write a love confession in a manga, or in a comic book, or a movie in general.
That's, I think, to me, what makes this chapter so strange in that sense, where it's like, we talked in the last video we did on this. Isaac asked about it taking 8 years to make that suit, you know? And it's like, well, it takes time to develop all that stuff. I can forgive that. Deku saying "you're my hero" to Uraraka, and 8 years go by before we follow that up. That's the thing that's strange to me, where it's like she didn't press him on it. He didn't come to his senses on it. Almost a decade went by for him to realize that. That feels a little strange. I don't know. Like, I love how we ended things, but I feel like this scene should have happened 5 years earlier, you know?
It's okay. It's pretty. You said it before. They were so cut up with their work that they really didn't think about it. That's the whole deal.
Which can happen. Which can happen.
But now that they realize that they can do more, and just being with their work to evolve their. I don't know if evolve is the right term, but do something other than work with their life. The whole spark can reconnect, and which is why I feel like I didn't get the chance earlier because my work. But now that I'm able to do this, let's try the thing out. Okay, that was weirdly word, but that's kind of what I mean. They feel like, okay, I'm ready to, well, go on, so to speak. And I have seen people getting pissed about Toga helping out, sort of being is the right term wing woman here?
Sure, yeah.
Since it's the wingman when
I don't know why
someone
people get
helps a
upset
guy.
with that.
And
So
but
I can tell you
people
my
need
point of view.
People need to understand that Toga knows that Oshako and Deko has a crush on each other. Toga loves both of them. If someone, she wants them to have a happy life, and I know people question she should be focusing on helping people and yada 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 because of her thoughts about Toga, and I'm just
she is doing that.
Yeah, but she should only focus on that. Now she's just some typical love interest, which is what I've seen people react. But I also need people to realize something. Have you ever heard of the saying "moving on"? How people, how should I put that without going too much downsize and all that jazz? Let's say that you have a. This is not one-to-one to an extent, but let's say that you have a friend, or more importantly, a partner who dies for XYZ. They understand if they mourn you, you mourn them for a while, but do you really think that that said person wants you to live an unhappy life and because they passed away? No, unless they are Eren and their whole spiel with Mikasa, but
on your feet, Dad.
So it's either being Eren or being a normal individual and want that person that you loved moving on, having a life that they can be happy with. I am not Toga and Uraraka didn't marry exactly, but there is a reason that the saying is "to death do us part." If you catch my drift.
I will just say, you're not wrong, but also, I want Uraraka to make her own decisions in this moment. You know, that's the thing to me where I would have a small issue with it. Like, it's nothing that's going to ruin the chapter, or ruin the series for me. But it's like Uraraka has said multiple times that she loves Suzuki Midoriya. She does not need this push from another person. Like, I would rather Uraraka like Deku and Bakugo's conversation earlier, right? Where Bakugo hints at something and Deku picks up on it, and then he makes his own decision to, hey, I'm going to do this. I want Uraraka to have that same agency. You know, like, I don't want her finally confessing to Deku or talking to Deku to be an outside source. I want her to finally do that herself for her own character's sake. So that's where I would land on that. But like, if we're talking about Toga, that's why Toga's involvement in this entire chapter to me feels a little contrived. Like, it doesn't ruin anything, but it's also like, why are we doing this? This could all just be Uraraka.
Here's the thing, though. I can speak from personal experience. There are people that need woman/wing.
I understand that it should have been Sue, not a ghost.
Yeah,
I get it.
That's why I feel like it's not that big of a problem. Some need that extra push. Hell, as far as we know, that talk with Bakugo at the driving to the dinner and after talk, he might not have making the push to talk about her as far as we know, because he got
I'm
the
not
idea.
saying she doesn't need a wing man or wing woman at all.
No, I'm not saying
saying
that either. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying that it's natural that some needs it more than others. So I don't think.
right.
And
My point is, I'm
considering
not
how
disagreeing
Toga
with
was,
you, Isaac.
yeah, I'm just saying that with how Toga was viewing both of them, I don't see how it's wrong for her to help pushing them. It would go against her nature to not doing that, especially if she's a Westage.
Right, but if we're gonna use that logic, and Brand, I know you have things to contribute. I'll give you a sec. But if we're gonna use the vestiges logic, right, of like the vestiges never made Deku do anything, and that's my point. Like this is literally Toga pushing Uraraka into Deku's arms, which is kind of like, okay, I would much rather if Toga's gonna say, "I want you to do this," and then Uraraka gets the courage to do it. That's a completely different situation. This entire framing is just a bit strange. That's all. To me. I know there's other people who would find things.
So I don't see it as Toga pushing Uraraka.
She literally pushes Uraraka in the dream world, and Uraraka bumps into
Agreed.
Deku.
No, agreed. But I don't think that is as much pushing as it is. It's not as much pushing as it is awakening. In the sense of ever since the war ends, Uraraka's prime mission is to continue to solve the Toga problem. She's not paying attention to anything else.
Yeah.
So it's not even her putting her feelings aside anymore. She's to a point not even thinking about it. She's not caring about it. She's not making it a priority in her life because she's just hyper focused, similar to what Deku's doing. So technically, Toga is doing the same thing that Bakugo is doing for Deku.
Right. And that's my point of I don't like how we framed it for Uraraka's character, because Bakugo nudged Deku and Deku made his own decision. The framing of it, whether we say Toga's even there or it's metaphorical, the framing of it doesn't feel like it's Uraraka making her own decisions. And that's the thing where I'm like, I don't like how
but that's on purpose.
That.
No, and I get it. But the reason I like it is because the difference between Deku and Uraraka, Deku is doing what he wants to do because that's his passion, right? And yes, Uraraka is doing what she wants, but a lot of it stemmed out of her relationship with Toga, and out of that sense of duty to Toga, which is why it makes sense. Toga's telling her, "Hey, it's okay. You don't have to keep
exactly.
You don't have to limit yourself anymore." For me,
okay. So my entire point though is you can accomplish all of that 5 pages earlier, and when these two meet up, it's because these two want to meet up, is all I'm saying.
So you think that Toga just being there kind of minimizes that impact, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it completely takes all the wind out the sails from Uraraka's character in perspective, because it's like we could have accomplished all of that earlier, because Uraraka's already thinking, I wish I could have talked to Deku. And when Deku runs back to her, that's now her chance, because she already said she wanted to do that. Why do we have Toga now inserting herself into this conversation? That's my point. We could have had all of this earlier, because now it feels a little weird. It takes the wind out the sails for me. Again, I know other people have different issues with this ending, but that's where it's like I don't understand why Toga's here, because Uraraka's own inner monologue already is kind of saying what Toga's saying anyway. Especially in this moment between these two people, it should have been Deku and Uraraka, not Deku, Uraraka, and Himiko Toga. You know? because Bakugo's not here. Bakugo's not talking to Deku seconds before this and initiating this. Bakugo was before the night even started, and that weighs on Deku. It informs his decision later because Deku comes to his own decision. Thank you. My points are actually based on reality. That's all to say. It's cute. I'm glad they finally are talking. I do think it's funny how Horikoshi still refuses to commit to anything, and they just hold hands like bros at the end. I would have gone a little further, but I respect it. I also wanted to point out this chapter. If you guys remember chapter 430, the previous one, remember when Deku's like, "Oh, this is how we became the world's greatest heroes," and then it says the end, and then All Might rips it down, and the epilogue starts. This chapter finally says the end. So I think this is actually the end for Horikoshi, at least in this franchise.
Yeah. True.
That's MHA 431. Brandon, do you think we needed this chapter?
It's one of those things that you don't figure that you needed it until you watch it. Until you read it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was telling you before we went live I'm glad Horikoshi wrote 431 because it gives me this closure I needed after 430. Because if you guys saw the review we did for the series, it's like, hey, things kind of just end. You give us a peek into the future, which is kind of cool, but I have so many more questions. Knowing where these characters end or knowing the lives that they live, I think is way more satisfying. To read this comment right quick, I think this is a better ending. Yeah. I feel like this builds on what that chapter was, and I don't know if it was just a time thing, but this being the end of the series, I think is way more fitting because it's just saying that they did the thing, right? They saved the world, and this is what the world looks like after all of that. They are in a world where heroes have too much time on their hands, where the number 2 hero can take chopsticks making classes. Do you think Endeavor had time to do that? Yeah. And now Deku can bring in the next generation of heroes. It's dope. Again, it answers the question of like, Deku's happy. He achieved his dreams. Now we can move on because now I'm happy. I appreciate that. There was a lot left up in the air. I still want to know how Spinner's book turned out in the quirk singularity theory, but some things just will go unanswered.
True. What needed to be answered has been answered.
If we get more movies, or should I say, when we get more movies, most likely, and if there is in the time skip timeline, they could just cover those in those movies.
They can. I do want to see. What his life is actually like that work-life balance thing of like being a teacher and then being a hero, and like how that actually works. One, I want to still see how the suit works if we do get a movie, but like I want to see his class. What does Deku's class look like? How does he run it compared to Eraserhead? Those are questions that it's like, if we get one more chapter.
Does he mumble in class?
He for sure mumbles in class. He was mumbling to that kid on the street, remember? But yeah, those are the things where it's like, yeah, that'd be nice to see. I don't need to see. Whereas before, it's like, well, I need to know what happens out there in the present day, right? This is 2024, My Hero Academia. Previously, it was always in 2016 because the year never changed since launch. But yeah, I'm satisfied. I think Horikoshi's satisfied. He already said he's working on his next manga, which is going to be exciting for us to check out. I know Isaac wants to do more reviews.
Horror idol manga together with Gege Akutami. Let's get it. Both of them are friends with each other, so why not?
With that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I don't know how that book's gonna go. How's like horror and idol? Is it like a zombie pop star? Like what would that even be?
There is some pop star or idol show where the idols are zombies. So
if it was ideal, the series would end here. We'd never get a sequel. But money talks, so prepare for MHA Boruto. I didn't say this, Artwinder, but I was definitely thinking that Coda is in Deku's class, and we very well could just follow Coda if we really wanted to. He's a character we already know and we already like, and he's a freaking waterbender. So
Yes.
you can just make the show about Coda. Or if you want to make an idol manga, Horikoshi, Aries right there. She wants to be a pop star, so we can follow her.
Yeah.
make her like Dazzler or something.
She can literally turn back time.
Classic.
It was right there. I'm sorry.
They have a prequel manga to adapt right there. No sequel needed. Any other thoughts, Isaac, before we close this one out?
Nothing really.
I only have one thing to say that's not MHA related, and only the
Oh, boy.
people that really care and know and care. My heart broke when Saul and Robin reunited. So beautiful. So beautiful. Those that know. Those that know. Oh, and by the way,
I don't
Castlevania
know.
Nocturne looks amazing.
That it does. I don't even watch the show, but that trailer was fire.
Yes. Yes.
The audience understood the reference. There you go. Arc Winter got it. But yeah, that was My Hero Academia chapter 431, titled More. I can just imagine
Mas.
I can just imagine Viz and Shonen Jump being like Kylo Ren at Horikoshi's office. More! You gotta give us more! I also find it funny how Horikoshi ended the shipping wars from the comfort of his office 2 months after the book ended. He's just like, all right, last grenade, I'm out of here. But I'm also not going to entirely commit because I don't want you guys to dox me. No, but this has been My Hero Academia and the Amateur Otaku Podcast. If you enjoyed this, give us a like, subscribe so you don't miss a thing. I know Isaac and the crew have other stuff cooking up this holiday season, so stay tuned for that. And things around the channel might look a little different in 2025. So let us know what you want us to cover. And we'll be back with more awesome anime and manga videos. Isaac, what you got going on? Where can the folks find you? Talk.
Well, you can find me over at Blue Sky at what's my handle again? Emblemaniac Dr. BSKY.social, and well, I still have Twitter even though I'm not as much on there anymore, on the Emblemaniac, and I'm what I'm gonna say. I am gonna try and do a review on Brothership soon. You sure I am a bit late, but I need to get my feelings out about that game, and Mike knows that I have some thoughts about it, to say the least. And well, I'm gonna try and fix that my first Let's Play. I downright scrapped the first one because I didn't like how that ended up. So we shall see how I solve that.
Fingers crossed. I'm sure it's going to turn out great. Monkey, D. Braffy, plus Ultra. Where can they find you, bro?
If you look, you can find me at Monkey D. Braffy on Twitter. And that's about it.
You guys can find me at The Novice Cinephile on Threads and Instagram, Novice Cinephile on Blue Sky, and TikTok for the next 30 days until it's gone. You can also find me on YouTube as well. We're also doing the Assembled podcast over on Geekly Goods Live. We are talking about the Arrowverse because it's over. That's the biggest non-MCU cinematic universe that's existed. And it just ended like a week or two ago, and nobody's talking about that. So we're going to cover that.
And what an ending. And what an ending.
Did you say Arrowverse ended now?
Yes.
Yeah, the Arrowverse ended with Superman and Lois.
Oh. I forgot that it did with that.
It's such a good show. Watch it. It's so great.
So great.
But yeah, we're gonna be covering that this Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Go check that out over there. And yeah, my work, collider.com, all that good stuff. Until next time, though, guys, if there is a next time, because this is a My Hero Academia episode, remember to always go beyond plus ultra. Peace sign. Here we go.